Hey guys, this is Pat from Rain Country Homestead. God is good all the time. What I'm doing is building a little shelf so we can contain our eggs. We have 10 chickens. Our chickens produce more eggs than we can eat, and Heidi makes colloidal silver. And so there are a few local folks that like to come by and do a little horse trading or pay for some eggs and colloidal silver. This helps us to pay for our feed and a couple other little things perhaps around the homestead here. So I'm building a little shelf here to house the eggs and the colloidal silver. So when I get done, of course this is sitting on its back, so and she gets, when I get the shelf done, then she can just set the eggs out here and the colloidal silver bottle set in here like this, and I'll have a little roof that comes over top of this. I have a 10-degree pitch on this, so people can come by at their leisure and just go ahead and put payment in a little payment box. A lot of times we're pretty busy, or we might not be here, so it makes it convenient for them, makes it convenient for us, that they can come at their leisure and pick up their groceries whenever they feel like it. So anyway, that's what I'm working on today. And I thought I might have part of the way done, rough cutting this out. Again, I'm one of these guys that kind of engineer on the fly. And when I get done with the project, if I feel it's something I'm going to work on or rebuild again at some point, then I might take some dimensions and write it down in my little book that I have. So what I got going on is I have some sides that are built, and I have a little front here that's going to act as will act as a part of a fascia. Cut a rabbet joint in here. That's going to overlap the front edge of the cabinet bottom. And what I got going on here is, it's probably unconventional way of doing it. I cut in here with a radial arm saw and of course a dado blade, and so I made these cuts on the left and right hand side panels of the cabinet sides. Then I set my miter saw up for 10-degree cuts. Off of 90, I set it off 10 degrees and made a slope cut here so I can have a shedding action for the little roof that I have put on here but haven't necessarily designed yet. Now the other thing that I do to help speed up some process is I have a couple of different little jigs that I have for making radiuses and special cuts. This particular cut here, I have a jig that I made, and I cut that out. All I have to do is put it on here and trace it out. Here's another larger one that I can take and I can butterfly it or mirror it and trace it to a larger piece that will somewhat mimic this smaller one. What I did to make this particular cut here is half of 3/4 inches is 3/8 of an inch. And so I wanted to come in here halfway and make my rabbet cut. What a rabbet cut does is it helps you to line up your work pieces, gives you more surface area when you're gluing. If you just glue on the edge like that, then you only got 3/4 of an inch holding on to this piece here. But if you take and you make all your measurements and compensate for that 3/8 right there, well, you have 3/4 of an inch plus you've got 3/8 of an inch holding on this corner. That makes a lot stronger corner. You'll see that done in a lot of cabinet making and whatnot, and it also just makes a real nice corner. It lines things up, and then you also have the benefits of this front fascia. You don't have that edge there showing, and you got it overlapping, and it's just a lot stronger. But if this is sitting here like this and it's glued and nailed, or glued and screwed, then what happens is it gives the drawer bottom a lot more rigidity, and it'll keep it from bowing like that or cupping. From weight being placed on a drawer top for a long period of time, what happens is it'll start to sag on you. Well, this piece running across here, The fascia boards, the stiles and rails for cabinet faces, not just for aesthetics and holding the doors on, but it also gives the drawer bottoms and the drawer cabinets a little more rigidity. So that's the benefits of doing rabbet joints and also doing dado joints. Dado joints do the same thing. So if you have a drawer bottom that runs across through here, by having the dado joint in there, that holds this in place real well. Matter of fact, I could actually just put this together if it fits tight enough, and I really wouldn't need any fasteners just to hold it together. And it would actually hold very well. But over time, this would work back and forth. You've seen old rocking chairs and stuff like that. I mean, they're not just pressed together, but there's a lot of joints, and after time, they'd work back and forth and they'd work apart. Well, with this, if you glue this and put some finishing nails or some staples in here, you put the staples in from this outside, and you most likely won't see them. I'm going to be using galvanized finishing nails because it's going to be out in the weather. But I have this weird little shape in here to accommodate this little piece right here. Again, that's kind of an unconventional way of doing it. Typically what would happen is this would come out clear to the face, and it would be smooth out here, and then you'd have fascias come out, and then they would go along this edge and then along this edge right here, stiles and rails. So I'm just thinking outside the box, doing it a little bit differently. I want to make this waterproof or water resistant. There's nothing waterproof around here unless you dip it in tool dip and keep it under some sort of shelter. Rain has a tendency to penetrate things around here, but we want to make it as right as we can. So I have you kind of caught up as to what I've done, and I'll kind of run you through. Maybe at some point I'll do a video on how to cut rabbets and dado joints, but real quick run through of what I did here is I lowered or raised my blade to 3/4 of an inch, so it's 3/4 of an inch high off the table. Then I ran the fence over to 3/8 of an inch, locked the fence down, and then the part that I want to remain the face here, and I want to remain a full 3/8 of an inch, I put the cut side of the wayside to the outside, so this leaves a full 3/8 of an inch, so the kerf is going to be another 1/8 of an inch. So you want to be careful when you're doing something like this not to cut it this way, or else this is going to be like 3/16 or 1/4 inch, depending how wide your blade is. This is a narrow kerf blade, it's only like 1/8 of an inch. So, but you want to make sure that when you set your fence up to 3/8 of an inch, that you want to leave the 3/8 of an inch part that you're going to save. So I have the blade height set at 3/4. I have the depth in here to set to 3/8. And so then I run my piece through, all the way through. And then I flip it this way. I set this to like 5/8 of an inch. I want to take 3/4 of an inch, plus it's going to take the kerf out of there. So I set the table up to 5/8. And then I run just to double check, because each blade is different. And as you can see, this one's different here. I want to run the blade to where it's just going to cut out this portion here to 3/4 of an inch in depth. Now you can see the blade is right next to where that 3/4 inch cut is. And then I set the height of the blade down to 3/8 of an inch high. So I run this back through again, and then that takes out this piece of wood here. So that gives me a 3/8 by 3/4 inch cut that sits on the drawer top, or the front face of the drawer, like so. That kind of gets us caught up to this point. I still have to notch out this front edge to match this portion here that will accommodate this piece right here. Okay, so I know where to make my notch. I make it right here at the top edge of the fascia. And I want to run it into this edge right here all the way up. Now if you guys are nervous about it, you can take a straight edge or 3/8 of an inch. You can measure up 3/8 of an inch up from this edge. And you can put a straight edge on there. And that gives you a line to go by. But I just eyeball it sometimes. Just take a real sharp chisel. I sharpen on my own chisels and wood lathe bits. It takes a little bit of getting used to get it right, but believe it or not, that is very sharp. It might not look like it, but it is. So this is real soft wood. It's cedar. It's western red cedar, and so all I have to do is just a little bit of manipulating there with waving this back and forth to take off a little bit at a time. I always take this flat part of the chisel and put it towards the work I want to save. That way, if I was to do this, then it's going to dent the wood here. It's not going to make this a true 90 degrees. So that's the reason why I always take the flat side of the chisel and go to the back side. The finished edge is always going to see the back side of this when I'm doing my work. And just going in there and pop a little bit out at a time. So I want to find out what depth I have to deal with. So I line the front edge of the fascia piece. I can trace the back side of that. Now I know how deep I need to go with this cut. Now you can take a little light mallet and tap that if you want to. I don't see the need for it. This isn't that long of a project, so I can just take it easy and take it out just a little bit at a time. If it was a bigger project, I might have a mallet here that I would use to tap that. It might be a little faster. Now when I chisel in this way, I turn the chisel to where this part, the beveled part, is facing in. And I just tap it with the heel of my hand. Again, this is real soft wood, so I don't really need a mallet. I can just work it back and forth like that. Okay, now for the big test. Okay, both sides are done here. You know, when I go to put this together, if there's just a little bit of height here difference, I can take and just sand this down, make up the difference in sandpaper, or even set the joiner up and take a little bit off of here, or the table saw up and take a little off of here. This is all going to be a rough sawn face and exterior, so it's supposed to have the rustic barnyard look, I guess, to it. We'll go in the other room and see what we got to do next. So I brought the empty egg carton in here and this bottle so I can take dimensions and see how everything was going to fit together. So now I don't need these anymore. I have the shell of this thing already worked out. You see, with these particular joints I have on here, nothing is glued, nailed, or screwed together. I'm just picking it up with one hand. All the joints are fitting really tight. I'm liking that. So then the eggs and everything will fit in here. So now what I got to do is I want to build a back to this. Now the back doesn't have to be real thick. It can be a piece of AC back here, or I can laminate a bunch of cedar boards together. But what that back will do is it will give this thing a lot of rigidity this way. It'll, you know, back and forth this way. It'll tie it all together. So it's going to be pretty strong the way it is, but that'll make it just a little bit stronger yet. What I have to do is I have to determine what I'm going to use for the back. Again, it'll be some sort of scrap I have laying around here, been kicking around for years. What I'll do is I'll cut a rabbet joint in the bottom of this board, and rabbet joints along this edge here and along this edge here, and try to keep the rabbet joint from getting into here. So I got to do a little thinking on that, and then we're going to figure out what to do about the fascia. Now I also have to find a board that's just a little bit longer than this to kind of give this a little bit of a drip edge, but still also give it enough to where you can still open and shut the door so it won't hang up on the door. So that's what the fascia is going to do on this. It's going to drop down the necessity to have the door clear up to the top. So the fascia will run along the edge here. The roof will run over the top, overhang a little bit, and then the door will be able to open and shut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this 3/4 of an inch all the way down, and I could do that on the table saw, and I can also do it on the router table here. So I'm just showing you two different methods. Each one works. This one actually works a little cleaner in some respects. So I want to set the height of my cutter to 3/8 of an inch, because that is going to come up to the same height as the bottom of this dado joint. The rabbet joint is going to be 3/8 of an inch depth of cut. Then I want to move my fence in to where it cuts 3/4 of an inch in this way. So that the cut in this way is going to give me a 3/4 inch relief on the back side of this. Don't worry guys, this is not plugged in yet. Okay, so that's at 3/4 of an inch this way. Now I can lock down my fence and go plug in the machine. Pretty nice day, so I had to do some running around and stretch out some extension cords to get my solar going. Okay, here I've selected a piece of vertical grain cedar, and vertical grain is about the only thing you can really use on a roof. This is going to be the real roof. So I'm going to go ahead and bevel this at 10 degrees. That's where I have the roof. The pitch of the roof is 10 degrees. So I'm going to go down here and change my blade. Okay, here I'm back over here at the router table again. This is the top. This is going to be the roof. So I have to come in 1 inch to have an overhang for the cabinet. I got my table back here, or my fence set up 1 inch to the front edge of the cutter, and I want to penetrate 3/8 of an inch into the wood. So I want to measure up to 3/8 of an inch, and I want to cut to a certain point. I don't want to cut past this point here. So what I'm determining now is this is 6.5 inches up the board, and so I want to come in right there. So this is going to fit in here, and it'll be permanently affixed to the sides. Again, this is upside down. I have to use that cutter because I want to put another dado joint in the roof so it gives it more stability this way, and when I glue it and nail it, it'll help to keep this from warping in the sun and in the heat and the cold. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to put a notch basically, or a dado joint in the roof. I have to know where to stop, so I'm going to follow my line around to the top of the board where I can see it, making sure that the line is exactly square. So that's going to be my stop point on this side. So 6.5 inches on this side as well. Okay, that's just a reference line of where to stop. Now what I can do is I can line up the blade edge and the fence where I want the cutter to stop, because this is going to be all undercover. I won't be able to see where to stop. I'll line up the edge of the board and just put a little mark right there on the fence. So now when I run the board through there, I will know where to stop because I have a line right here. Then I can shut the machine off and just remove the board, and then I'll have that concealed dado joint back in here. So I have to flip the board over and do the same thing on the other side. What's different with this is I have to feed it back this way. So now the line, the center of the board, I marked that. I put this reference mark right here, right on the center of the cutter head. I can go over to the edge of my board and make another reference line right here. Now I know where to stop going the other way. Okay, so now you can see where the edge of the board has a full 3/4 of an inch wide width for the cabinet side to fit into. Now I'll do the same thing on this side, but going in the opposite direction. Well, there you have it. Now again, the reason why I did the 10-degree bevel is because the sides are cut 10 degree at a slope. I wanted to duplicate the 10-degree cut on the drip edge and the 10-degree cut on the back edge, and that way these will be totally vertical or plumb. Okay, now what I have is I have a piece that I cut for this top, and I cut one edge at 10 degrees on the table saw, and the other edge I just left square. Now I'm just determining what I want to do here. I got a little spacer and one of my little templates that I use from time to time, and I'm going to center that in. I'm just deciding on what kind of a edge I want to put in here. I want to hide the edge here, so I think I'm going to come over 3/8 of an inch on that side, 3/8 of an inch on that side, and then chisel this out to where it sits in there nice and flat. I have 23.5 inches, so I want to go 3/4 of an inch to allow for the 3/8 of an inch inset that's going to be incorporated into this. So we have 23.5 minus 3/4 is 22 3/4. I think that looks okay. So now what I have to do is where I'm going to work on the back and work on the bottom here. I want to make a little decorative piece that goes along the bottom here, from the edge to the edge here. Well, okay, I got the back all put in there. I didn't think it was necessary. I took you through all the steps in that. One thing I did want to point out is I have this piece is beveled this way at 10 degrees, and this one is also beveled to match that way, or actually this way. So if any rain or moisture drips on the back side of the cabinet, then it's gonna want to shed out away from the box, the inside of the box. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. Then the other thing is I came up with a solution for the doors. I beveled these at 10 degrees to match the roof, and we'll have the doors going on here like so. I'll engineer a little bit of a gap in here, so for shrinking and swelling of the doors, we don't want it to get too tight, but just for aesthetics for right now, the doors have to drop down a little bit from the top to miss the overhang. So when they open up, they'll miss that edge there. I found some hinges that I had purchased at a garage sale years ago, and today I think I'm going to go ahead and use them. These little strap hinges here, and I found some of these little handles here. I'll go ahead and paint those flat black, and I'll cut out a little decorative bottom for this. And it does look like I'll need to take a little bit more off of the inside of here. I can do that with a belt sander easy enough. Clean that up. Matter of fact, in the process of doing all this, I thought about beveling that just a little bit, but forgot about it. So I'll have to go back and get that to where it fits a little bit looser. Alright guys, now it's day 2, and I'm out here in last night I put a little bit of flat black paint on these little handles here, and I think it's going to look okay. I'll put those right in there somewhere. I did take a electric hand plane and just took one swipe on this door, and that gave me plenty of room here to open and shut these now without it binding in the center. What I want to do also, I think, is maybe put a little piece of wood back behind on one of these doors. And the reason for that is to just maybe weather that seal in just a little bit. I don't think any wind or rain is going to get in this, but that little piece of wood back there will just actually assist or be a little bit more insurance. But I think what I'll do is I'm going to put some spar varnish on here, and I might put a little latch on the, well actually I probably will put a little latch on the front of the doors here. It goes across so we can keep the doors shut and from blowing open and shut. This whole project I think was pretty much free. Didn't cost me anything. I had the wood sitting around for years, scraps from different things. So I took and made placement of where I wanted to install the handles here, and so I went ahead and drilled holes. I measured down, and then I measured in. Then I took a square and verified the horizontal level of the two knobs, and went ahead and drilled those out to accommodate the fastener to fasten the knobs on. And just in case you guys were ever wondering on a pair of wire cutters what these little holes are for cutting off small screws. This one here happens to be a 832 screw, and it screws right into that, and you can just cut a screw off to the right length. These happen to be too long for the material that I'm going through, and so I had to cut them shorter so they wouldn't bottom out on the bottom side of the handle. And I gotta verify, make sure that I cut them short enough. I want the threads to penetrate in as far as they can go without having too much slop. So there's still just a little bit of slop there left, but I think maybe what I'll do is I'll find a couple of washers to put on the back. Okay, I found a couple little washers here that will just make that head just a little bit wider and displace the area a little bit better. Typically what a guy wants to do is he wants to remove all of his hardware, which is I'm going to do here in just a second. And I'll go ahead and just put some spar varnish on this whole thing. Here's this little back piece here that kind of helps to seal that crack a little bit better. So now we have the roof here is going to protect anything in here. As you can see right here, all I did is I took a piece of wood and cut it to size and cut these to where they'd fit right in this shape right here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get these fasteners off of here and start to put a finish on this. Well, folks, we're back out in the shop this morning, and I gave the box a couple of days, or the cabinet, a couple of days to dry. So now I'm just going to reassemble everything. Okay, eventually what I'll do is I'm going to make a little strap here, either out of the wood or even metal. And that'll be in a separate video that I put that strap, build that strap separately. There's a little bit of woodworking involved and a little bit of design involved, but this video has gone long enough, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get this installed so Mama can use it now. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself, so I have to come back here to 5/8. 2 5/8 on this side. Now I'll go see if Mama Rain approves.
Testing. Wow. Well, that's beautiful, Patrick.
It's got a little deal right here to keep the weather out of it.
Cool. So we'll put empty eggs in there so whoever comes to pick them up won't actually get it. Look at that. How perfect is that?
Is it cute?
It's great. I love it.
Well, thanks guys for stopping by. Appreciate you hanging out with me in the shop. Take care and God bless.